Today we're going to be speaking with Randy Gomm, president of Radiant Health Saunas, on everything you need to know about infrared saunas. Randy has a history of being an adrenaline junkie, a story we will hear shortly. But his greatest obstacle was not faced on any mountainside, in any rapids, or any firefight. He experienced pain so significant that he had to leave work, eventually being diagnosed with fibromyalgia. It turned out, though, that he was high in both toxins and heavy metals. He used an infrared sauna as part of his recovery and became so passionate about how it helped his healing that he created a company, which I really admire, this company, to share the technology with therapists, doctors, and individuals on something he's been doing for 25 years. So today we will learn how these saunas work, who they can help, and what you should consider if you're thinking about trying the therapy. Randy, before we jump into the saunas, can you tell me a little bit about your life before you faced this medical condition and
I
how
was.
quickly it
Yeah,
came on?
I was a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I was on the Worcester Mountain Ski Patrol, mountain rescue team, whitewater kayaker. Yeah, adrenaline junkie would be a good way of describing me. Pretty active, and I was a firefighter, and I guess I've been a firefighter for about 11 years. And all of a sudden, I came down with musculoskeletal pain, joint pain, knee pain, wrist pain, and they said I had fibromyalgia. And I'll be honest with you, I was pretty mainstream. I thought, kind of sounds ignorant now, but I thought health food stores were kind of for hippies and yuppies kind of thing. And so I was quite naive. Anyway, and I just kind of went along with the diagnosis. I had difficulty walking, couldn't hold on to a cup of tea, couldn't hold a doorknob, turn a doorknob with one hand. So I was quite restricted with what I could do. And I'd say about 6 months later, another fellow, Robin, in my same four-man crew came down with the same symptoms. He got, wait a minute, you got two healthy guys, neither of us can work. So I had an adipose tissue sample sent to a lab in the States called AccuChem Labs, and turned out I was very high in a coordinated pesticide used in treating wood products, and I was high in both mercury and lead. And we foolishly had gone to a roofing tar fire in the months previous to that, and doing an external attack, and didn't always have a breathing apparatus on those days, kind of late 80s, early 90s. And it wouldn't be fair. That's how I got involved with the infrared sauna, but it wouldn't be fair to say all I did was the infrared sauna to get better. I changed my diet, worked on my stage 4 sleep. I dramatically changed my diet. I did a bunch of things, but of all the modalities I used, it was the most effective in lowering my toxic load, reducing my pain level, allowed me to get back to work. So that's why I got passionate about the saunas. But I would never say all I did was the sauna to get better,
Oh, that's good.
yeah. So I went,
to give people a clear picture. They need to know.
So I went back. I've been back skiing and hiking and doing all the things that I did before. Maybe not to the same level, but I'm a lot older now too. So yeah, it was that fine line. In your mind, you still think you're young, but when you get injured, it takes longer to recover. But no, so that's how I got involved and went down that pathway. And I've had a bit of a varied background. I was a shellfish biologist before I was a firefighter. So I never minded doing research. And so I was big one, going into PubMed and Medline, looking at all the research papers. And I did the same thing to get better. And I did the same thing when I was exploring as far what to do and looking for an infrared sauna, the same thing, right? And so that's, where I am today. Yeah, it's been good. I find it hard as far as in the sauna business, because there's a fair bit of deception out there. And that part always kind of bothers me. I know people that have limited funds, or on disability, or they're doing anything they can to get better. And again, there's some marketing stuff that's not really totally accurate. So that part's kind of disappointing. So it's been a bit of a wake up call for me, just getting involved in this industry. But it's not just our products. There are some good products out there. You just have to know what questions to ask.
Okay. So, before we dive into the sauna a little bit more, how did you find out that your pain was due to toxicity and heavy metals?
Yeah, well, because the other fellow on my same four-man crew came down with the same symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, what's the odds of that? You have two healthy guys and neither of us can work. So I had this adipose tissue sample sent to a lab in the States called Accuchem Labs, and it turned out I was high in this chlorinated pesticide and in both mercury and lead. So that without that, to be honest with you, if the other fellow, I feel bad for him, but if he hadn't gone off with the same symptoms, I don't know with my limited knowledge at that time if I would have made the connection that this was a
Mm-hmm.
toxicity issue. And it doesn't mean that everybody with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome has a toxicity issue, but I personally believe there's a subset that do, right?
Okay.
And so, and anything that you can do to lower your toxic load, for a bunch of, I can't make any health claims. Obviously, with the saunas wouldn't be a good idea. I've already
Mm-hmm.
been, you have to be cautious with what you claim. But I believe for anything that it's always beneficial for us to lower our toxic load. We're all exposed to all kinds of chemicals and toxins and today that we weren't
Mm-hmm.
exposed to, 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And as our toxic load keeps building up, I think it's not that beneficial. So if we can do something to keep it down, it's great, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this great influencer that I have made friends with on Instagram. Shauna, her name is, and her account's called A Little Less Toxic. And she made this little video to kind of show people about why it's important to pay attention to how many toxins we have in
Mm,
our life.
yeah,
And it was kind of made it really clear for me, and hopefully I can describe it, but it was like a water pitcher with a spout on the end,
yeah,
and she was filling up the water pitcher all the time and also leaving the spout open because you're always detoxing through
yeah, yeah,
urination and bowel movements and sweating. Some
yeah,
people sweat more than others, though. And so, if you're filling up too fast and your body can only get rid of so many toxins, detox so many,
yeah.
um, then you're going to overflow that pitcher of water and you'll
Yeah.
start to
That's
have
that.
maybe some symptoms or things pop up. Or
Yeah,
for
that's a good
you,
analogy. Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
analogy, isn't it? I think it's kind of, there's been, when you go to some of the functional medicine conference, which I've had gone to, they continue to talk about people's toxic load, right?
yeah,
And and it just makes sense over time that you get that buildup. And a lot of times people with compromised immune system or toxicity problems have what they call compromised phase two detox pathway.
mm-hmm,
Phase one is when you're exposed to kind of the chemicals your body's dealing with that. As phase two is when you attach a metabolite to it to clear it out of the body. And a lot of people have compromised phase two detox
mm-hmm,
pathway. So two people can be exposed to the same chemical or the same something, and one person can
mm-hmm,
clear it out better than the other. So
mm-hmm.
that's something to,
Absolutely.
be aware of as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you got this tissue sample back, and then
Yeah.
what did you do?
Well, then I was, of course, I went, wow, okay, this isn't good, whatever. And so what can I do to lower my toxic load? Now, to be fair, this was around 1990, and I didn't know about infrared saunas then. So I started thought, okay, at that time, there wasn't the internet access like there is now. So I was going to the universities and looking at some sweating studies and heavy metals and stuff like that. And so I thought, okay, that's something that we can do. It is like, as you pointed out, you've got your bowel movements, you've got your urine, and you've got sweat. Your three, kind of main means to lower your toxins in your
In
body.
your liver.
Yeah, yeah, and your liver is definitely involved with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I started sweating in a conventional sauna and putting a lot of hours in there at a lower temperature, and then did that for probably about a year, and then I started found out about infrared saunas, and I was really concerned as far as, because it was new to me. I thought, okay, is there any danger as far as infrared? Like, it sounds good, but is there anything that's going to be adverse, reactions? So I found some animal studies looking at specifically on far infrared, and they showed that, and to be fair, they were rats and rabbits, and they showed that it could, the study showed increased longevity and mobility. And so the only thing I ever found that was adverse, kind of a contraindication was there was a study in, I think, Northern California showed that hot tub use greater chance of miscarriage. So because you are raising the core temperature, if I was a woman, I wouldn't use it if I'm pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
And also too with breastfeeding, I got some feedback a couple times years ago with someone, two women within about a month phoned me and said, my child's colicky. I really like using the sauna because it helps promote milk flow, but is there any chance, I'm passing toxins on into the child? And it had never even entered my mind. And so I phoned a toxicologist at the university here and I said, is there a chance you're mobilizing toxins in the breast milk? And she said, definitely. So I felt bad that I didn't know that before. So I definitely passed the word. And a lot of pregnant women or breastfeeding women will still, not pregnant women, breastfeeding women will still use the sauna, but I advise them that they probably shouldn't, right? It's not because there's a chance that you might be mobilizing toxins in the breast milk.
Right.
So I would,
Yeah.
They like it because it promotes milk flow, but on the same hand, you don't want to promote milk flow if it turns out that the milk has some toxicity component.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The baby is already being, well, for another topic we've explored before is that you're already compromising the baby. They aren't born organic. They're coming with mama's toxic load and even dad's.
Yeah, it's quite funny when you look at some of the study. I think it was the Environmental Working Group, Environmental Defense, and they looked at the umbilical cord and stuff, and they looked at the toxicity levels. And whatever you have as an adult, you're passing on, right?
Yeah. Okay, so what was your experience like with the infrared sauna? And also, I am kind of still. I was talking to my husband because we're going to buy one of your saunas actually, because we've done some research and really feel confident and excited to have one of your saunas.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear.
But he was asking me questions and I'm like,
that's good.
I still can't answer these questions. So I hope that after this episode, I really understand what is the difference between a conventional sauna and an infrared sauna. And even there, there's even more, what is it? Full spectrum.
Yeah.
What are the different kinds?
So the big thing is a conventional sauna. A lot of people say I can't handle a sauna because it's too hot. Okay. Typical sauna is 180 to 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's significantly, it's pretty hot. A good far infrared sauna is usually you're getting in at 115. You might be, the highest temperature it reaches like 149. So you're kind of, and the difference is it's heating up the body more and the air less. And that's when someone says, well, is it like microwaving your body? And we'll say, no, we're exposed to far infrared all the time. When you feel heat from someone else's body, that's far infrared. If you're laying on the sand on the beach in the summertime and you feel the radiant heat coming up from the sand, that's far infrared. So something we've been exposed to for a long time. So there's no really safety risk. The big thing is that because you're heating up the body more than the air temperature is much more comfortable. And so you sweat profusely at a lower temperature. So you don't come out of a far infrared sauna feeling wiped out, feeling exhausted. You actually, even I have some of the fire halls, you can use the sauna and respond from there to a fire. And you could never do that at a conventional sauna. The guys would be too wiped out, or the guys, there's women as well, but the firefighters would be too wiped out, right? And so that's what's changed as far as the, it's nice because you can go in there for a good half an hour and it not only relaxes you, but you're sweating profusely. And so if the whole idea, a lot of people with chronic health problems have difficulty sweating. And sometimes it's because they have a malabsorption problem, some sort of intestinal dysbiosis, which is a polite way of saying they have, critters in their body. So because they have a malabsorption problem, they may not be absorbing enough trace minerals and electrolytes. And your body almost as a defensive mechanism, if you're low on electrolytes and trace minerals, you minimize the sweating. And so that's the first thing you check. If someone says, hey, I have difficulty sweating, drink coconut water, chew on dulse, buy some sort of electrolyte mix, just different things so you can, and that usually makes a big difference. So people that have had difficulty using sauna with a temperature only rarely ever have a problem in a good infrared sauna.
Okay.
Now,
And then what are the differences
okay, there's
in,
about three differences.
yeah.
There's one's called far infrared sauna.
Uh-huh.
The other one's near infrared,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one's full spectrum. Okay.
Yes, that's the part that confuses me, are
Yeah.
those.
And I'll be really candid, and probably because of my biology background, I always want to find when someone makes a statement, I want to see, is there research to support what they're stating?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's interesting. You'll find some comments online that'll go from one person to the next person, and even some very, people that are doctors or in the field. And I thinking, just do the research yourself. Like, don't don't rely what's necessarily being bounced around the internet, because it may not always be true. So when you go into, for instance, PubMed or Medline, those are the two places where you go to look at research papers,
Right.
which I did. So there's lots of research on conventional saunas, probably has the most research. And
Okay.
the next one would be far infrared saunas. And even as of today, I can't find one research paper on near infrared saunas or full spectrum saunas. Now, the idea with full spectrum is that the idea is you have near, middle, and far infrared. That's what it's pushing.
Okay.
Now, there's good research on near infrared. Okay. I'm a great fan on near infrared. It's mostly some in the near infrared range, some in the red light range, usually in the 630 to 940 nanometers. Okay, it's a very specific frequencies. It shows things like wound healing, tissue repair, mitochondria function improvement. It's really good research, but all the research was done on light emitting diodes or lasers in that specific frequency. And
Okay.
so to me, you can't take that information and said it applies to something else like saunas. I think I don't, some people may disagree with me, but I just don't think it's accurate. And there's a reason for that. If you look at these research papers on, let's say, near infrared, okay, in that range, 630 to 940, because that includes some of the red range and some of the near infrared, in that particular frequency, it shows, sorry, that was a truck there. It shows on the wound healing and tissue repair and mitochondria function improvements, they're either touching the skin or touching the petri dish. And there's a reason for that. There's something called the inverse square law from a light source. And what does that mean? Well, if you're 1 inch away from a light source versus 6 inches away, if you're 6 inches away, you go 6 times 6 is 36, and you put a 1 over top, you're getting 1/36th the intensity. If you're 10 inches away, you're getting 100th the intensity. So let's say you had a bank of lights that was hidden in the wall there on a full spectrum sauna or near infrared. If you want to quote the research on near infrared, you would actually have to be touching these lights or extremely close to them, let's say with an inch or something. You couldn't be 6 inches away or 10 inches away. If you're 10 inches away, you're getting 100th the intensity. So to be fair, you're still benefiting, you're sweating, okay? In a near infrared sauna, you're sweating, and a full spectrum sauna, you're sweating. But you could also sweat by going to a hardware store and getting some big lamps and standing in a room, but you're not getting the benefits that I find as far as the far infrared. And so what I would do is I'd buy a far infrared sauna, and then if I want, and I do have a light paddle myself, a light emitting diode paddle that's in the 630 to 940 range. And if I have an injury on my thumb, I've cut myself, I will use that paddle on there, and it accelerates wound healing. It's great. But I don't think, in my humble opinion, you can take that research and say it applies to saunas, because I haven't found, I waited about 2 years for a doctor, someone to challenge this idea as far as the full spectrum, and nobody was. And I thought, okay, you can either complain about it, Randy, or you can write the article yourself. So I wrote on my website what to look for in buying an infrared sauna, and I wrote near versus far. Mm-hmm. And I put it out there, and I ran it by 3 doctors that I work with in functional medicine. They're pretty bright, a lot brighter than I am. And I said, is there anything I'm saying there that's libelous, misleading, and they're saying, no, you're backing up everything you're stating. So I kind of put it out there and just give people the choice. So even if there's some companies that sell a full spectrum sauna and a far infrared sauna, I would stick with the far infrared sauna, and I would save yourself some money and don't buy this full spectrum, because some of these companies sell both. So don't buy into I think I view it as marketing, and get the full spectrum. Just save yourself some money and get a far infrared sauna. That's what the research supports.
Okay, so in my mind, I would have thought like full spectrum sounds better because then you get the benefit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying,
yeah, but if you have the lights, let's say on the full spectrum, if you have some in the near infrared range and into the middle range, okay, and not in the far, then the wattage that's being used for that, you're not getting the benefits of the far infrared. And if all the research papers on PubMed or Medline are all the research papers are on far infrared,
right,
then that's what we want. And so ours are mostly kind of 8 to 10 microns because that's what the research supports. And so, it's kind of the idea with the full spectrum is that you say, well, you get the benefits of far infrared and you also get the benefits of the near infrared. And to me, it's not supported, with what they're stating, because again, you'd have to be touching this petri dish or touching the skin, or so therefore you'd have the questions to ask is, in a full spectrum sauna, what micron wavelengths or what frequency are these lights in? Okay. They have to be somewhere in the 630 to 940 nanometers. How many lights do you have in there, and where are they located, and how far from the body? So those are the questions to ask, to say, okay, are you going to be actually getting benefits of the near infrared in their sauna or not? And so those would be questions that I would ask, because of this inverse square distance, inverse square law from a light source. That whole thing draws the attention to, you have to be very close to the lights. You can't be a foot away. You can't be 6 inches away, right?
Yes. So I don't want to talk too much about this, but you are talking about, so you have this light paddle.
Yeah.
I think I have one of those too.
Yeah. But yeah. It's sort of about like this.
It's like red.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can go to like a spa or something and they'll charge you extra money to like put that over your face or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I think there's research to support it. And so that's why I have one myself. But I don't think you'd have to, if you had a sauna that had a whole wall of lights that you could lean against, okay, you think that's great, but then you couldn't have there wouldn't be the far infrared lights.
It's just different. It's just different.
That's right.
A different layer.
You're not going to be actually with near infrared. You're not actually heating up the body. You're benefiting from, because, that's what the whole idea with the far infrared. So that light, for instance, if it's actually in the near infrared range and you hold it over your, it'll get slightly warm, but it's not really heating up the tissue if it's in that correct frequency. So it's
okay. So that one's called near infrared.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Or for full spectrum. Like I said, that to me, the easiest way was to go into PubMed and Medline, say, in the infrared range, what do the research papers support? And the only ones that I can find as of today are still in the far infrared range. So other companies sell both. They sell far infrared, sell full spectrum. I would just, if you don't want to buy one of ours, I totally understand. Just save yourself some money and buy a far infrared from one of these other companies, and I think you're better to go.
All right. Thank you for going through that with me again.
Oh, no, it's okay. I tend to ramble a bit. So, I can lose people pretty easy.
Well, I think it sometimes takes me, to be honest, hearing something a few times, said a few different ways, to get it. Now I have this light and I know that it helps. I believe it helps with like a wound or an injury.
Yeah, it does.
And I know in spas, they also use it because it helps to, like, if you put something on your face and you want it to absorb and work better, supposedly helps with things like wrinkles and stuff too. Okay. But so why did you decide to start Radiant Health Saunas?
Well, originally, I've been back to the fire hall. So I was now back working again. And I didn't like the fact, now this is 1990 and, in the 90s. And I didn't like the fact that there was, it was probably, I'm trying to remember, it was about 24 years ago, that I started really looking into the idea of putting saunas out there. And there was no commercial places in Vancouver Island where you could go to use one. And I knew people that had limited funds and, disabled. And I thought, okay, so I approached a bunch of doctors and I said, so if I sell you these units at cost, okay, and I wasn't even making them at the time, can we not get them in there? And then you can charge your patients or clients, $25 a session to use it. And I convinced probably, very quickly, probably a dozen places to do that. And so they all put them in. And I'm not thinking of selling saunas. That was my, thought I'd give back a bit. And so now people can go to place to use them. And then I kind of moved on, went back to the fire hall and whatever. And the next thing I started to get calls from some of these patients. Hey, I'd like to buy a sauna. So I went, oh, okay. Whatever. So that sort of evolved. I never really thought, oh, geez, I'm going to have a sauna company. And so I was selling them out of a place in Calgary. And they were called soft heat saunas. They had ceramic heaters, not a bad unit, continuous emissions. And I probably sold them for about 9 years. But I did get complaints of maybe 10 years. I did get complaints from some of the doctors and other practitioners. They didn't like the hot spots and cold spots with ceramic heaters. There was an issue. Your typical one with ceramic heaters is about 9 inches by 3 inches with a reflector behind. And so my concern with the carbon fiber was a bunch of things. One was a toxicity issue. Was it, as soon as you go to carbon fiber, was it going to be toxic? And then EMF and electrical fields. Those were a big topic for me. And so it took me a while to get the company who was making the saunas for me to my specs. When I told them I was going to do VOC testing. It stands for volatile organic compounds, to make sure it's completely non-toxic. And I was going to do the EMF testing. And to be fair, I brought that up, I think it was 14 years ago. And they said, Randy, nobody's asking for, low EMF. They hadn't even really heard about it. And I said, well, I sell to a different market. I either sell to people that have health problems or want to avoid health problems. How in good conscience can I sell something high in electromagnetic fields, And EMF is something, and maybe your followers already know this, is something that you might get from some electrical devices and things. And I've had people bring up to me, there was a gentleman the other day, I won't say what city he's from. I have no intention to be negative about a city, but he called me from a place in the States. And he said, well, what's the big deal? We're all exposed to EMF. And I said, that's true. And I asked him if he owned an older microwave, and he said, yes. And I said, well, if you took a Gauss meter up to the microwave within a couple of inches, it'd probably measure about 30 milligauss. But if you back off 2 feet, it would be 0. EMF always drops off with distance. And he goes, okay. And I said, well, would you be comfortable about standing next to your microwave when it's on within a couple of inches for like half an hour every other day? And he goes, no. And I said, why not? And he said, well, just to be on the safe side. And I said, well, if you recognize there's a potential problem there, what's different in an infrared sauna? Even though you don't see it, you're doing the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And many of the infrared saunas, I've gone in there with Gauss meters, and they range anywhere from 10 to 100 milligauss. So people are buying this sauna for their health, and they have no idea they're sitting in a really strong electromagnetic field. So eventually we got ours down. TCO or Swedish standards are 2 milligauss or less at point of body contact, meaning the wooden slats you lean against. Eventually we got that it averages about 0.3 milligauss at point of body contact. So I was quite pleased with that, because people that are sensitive. And then I was dealing with a building biologist. So she's much more knowledgeable about EMF than I am. And she said, Randy, that's great. 0.3 milligauss, that's the lowest she's found in the industry. But don't forget about the EF or electrical fields. And I go, what's that? She says, well, it's not measured with a Gauss meter, and some new research in Europe, and it's measured in volts per meter. And I go, oh, no. So I had to go back to the manufacturing company and said, look, I appreciate you brought the EMF levels down, but now I'd like you to address the electrical fields. And they kind of got upset.
Yeah.
They said, Randy, you keep changing the goalposts. And I said, look, I'm not in denial, but now that we know about it, we need to address it rather than wait till common knowledge, 10 years from now or something. So to give them credit, they brought the engineer back, this brilliant fellow, and we brought the EF levels down below building biology standards. which is good because now people with cancer, people that have sensitivities can now use their saunas, So
Mm-hmm.
it's just something to keep in mind. If a company states they're low in EMF, because we're not the only company that has low EMF levels, but if a company states that they're low in EMF, ask to see the testing, okay? And when they send you the testing, look at it closely, okay? Because what some companies are doing, it's clever, but I think it's unethical, is they're just testing the heaters in isolation. So that means they're not including the electrical connection and wiring. And what you and I care about is the environment we're sitting in there, not what the heaters test by themselves.
Right.
And to have your whole sauna tested for EMF, it may be a couple $1,000s. It's not this huge cost that a company can't afford. So
Mm-hmm.
if you ask any company, could please send me the EMF testing, look at it closely. Did they actually test the sauna, measuring at point of body contact where you lean against, or did they test the heaters by themselves?
Mm.
And that's really
Yeah.
important because that's the environment you're going to be sitting in.
Yeah. So I had, heard about your company, because I wanted to buy, I decided I finally wanted my own sauna, and I'm passionate about children's health and wellness here on the Brain
Yeah.
Possible.
Why?
And my health coach, whom uh, she told me about a client of hers, like a mother who had a child, and she saved up all this money to buy saunas are expensive. They're not a piece, you're not,
Yeah.
there's something, they're an investment.
Yeah.
And when you have a child in there who's maybe sick or trying to has some stuff that needs to like work its way out of the body, and you're
Yeah.
putting them in there, and for whatever reason, that one that they ended up getting that seemed like, okay, this is the best bang for my buck. Maybe people think that they can buy, there's some popular ones on the internet
Yeah.
that are cheaper, and smaller, maybe portable,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they kind of it's like they hotbox themselves in there.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of criminal, because people don't realize it, but what's happening to the child is then they're heating up, and there's probably like tons of these VOCs around them, and they're heating themselves up and opening their pores for all of this stuff to come in and irritate their skin. And then you add up on top of that the EMF and the, what did you say?
Electrical
The other,
fields. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the electrical fields, and it just can become irritating,
Yeah.
I imagine. But
Yeah, I think I've run into some people with immune system problems, or their children have immune problems, or whether it's autoimmune disease or something else, or some label that they've been given, and they're often very sensitive to EMF, and they don't realize,
mhm,
So you want to have a safe environment, kind of.
for
It's
healing, and when you're opening up those pathways and heating yourself up, gosh.
yeah, yeah, and you have to be careful with the young children. Is you need to go slow, and that,
Yeah.
first of all, even for adults that are sick. Let's say they believe they're toxic, and really doesn't matter whether they're given. I use the term different labels. It doesn't mean that it's not legitimate, but there's some person have these kind of symptoms, and they say, "Oh, you have this." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so and that can be totally accurate, and sometimes it's not. But in that case, if someone believes they're toxic, even as adults or children, you need to go slow. And there's a reason for it, is that let's say if I mentioned about compromised phase 2 detox pathways, which
Yeah.
is mostly in your liver, as you mentioned, because sometimes they get these benefits of the sauna, and they do too much too soon. And I totally understand it, because
Yeah.
you want to get better and you want to quit.
Yeah.
So they may use the sauna 4 days in a row. And
Yeah.
about day 4, they're going to have a major Herxheimer reaction, headache, flu-like symptoms, because you
Mm-hmm.
mobilize toxins too quickly. And even though, let's say, I'm just using this figure 90%, I don't know if it's 90% or 85% of the toxins and heavy metals come out through your skin. But let's say, 10% your liver's having to deal with. And if they already have compromised phase 2 detox pathways, they can't handle it. So they need
Mm.
to go slower. So even for
Yeah.
adults, you might go every 3 days. You might do that for 3 or 4 weeks or even longer. And if they can tolerate that, then every other day for 3 or 4 weeks or longer. And you'll listen
Yeah.
to your body, and you'll have way better success. And then you have to really, as I mentioned earlier, you really have to make a concerted effort to increase your electrolytes and trace minerals. So with children, the core temperature heats up faster. So you have to limit the time and the temperature that they go in there. They don't go in the same time and the temperature as an adult. Okay. And again, you've have to, you know, you can give them some sort of electrolyte drink mix or something, or they, if they can tolerate coconut water, great. Just making sure it's not just the fluids, it's not just the water they need to increase, it is the electrolytes and trace
And the
minerals as
minerals.
well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, you know, it's because sometimes you run into that with heavy metals and binding sites. They are low in electrolytes and trace minerals.
Yeah. Do you have many clients or buyers who purchase these for their children or to use for their whole family? And do they
Yeah,
share any
yeah,
stories with you?
yeah, they do. I have to, again, I have to be careful with claims, okay, as you know.
Yeah, we
But
can't
it's,
claim anything.
no, no. So I'm not, but I do, I sell the units for people that they believe their children have heavy metals. And we've, you know, and things like that. And they've sometimes been down many different journeys and paths, and you know,
They
I've seen
just want
some,
to try something else.
yeah, and well, we've had with certain conditions, we've had really good success. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, their
Mm-hmm.
friends tell them, and then they, you know, go on. I've had, depending on what city it's in, but sometimes we have commercial places where people can go and try it and see, you know, see how the kids do and
Yeah,
things like that, you
that's
know.
always a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. So we can, so that is an option that I don't have as many in the States as I do in Canada, but I'm trying to get more out there where a person can say, okay, is this going to benefit my child? And you go in and you have, hopefully you'll have half a dozen sessions. They might
Mm-hmm.
be $20, $25 a session. And then you can say, okay, is that going to benefit? Rather than me saying to somebody, oh yes, I think this will benefit.
It's
You
better.
know, I like going that route. That's probably a safer way to go. Most, yeah, the commercial places, you just have to make sure that the temperature is a little bit lower for a child, and it really depends on the age, and they can check with their specialists first, because I'm not a
Exactly.
practitioner, so I'm not giving medical advice and anybody,
Yeah.
but I would definitely, most of the time, the people will have, parents will have their kids going around 115 degrees, and they might put the upper temperature at maybe, you know, 125, 130 in that range. So you
Mm-hmm.
can try it. Start off with a shorter time period. You might start off with kind of 15 minutes, see how the child does. I'm not a great fan of, I ran into this with some Lyme disease patients where practitioners suggested they go in for 5 minutes and then the next day 6 minutes and 7. And eventually they're working up to, they're doing like, you know, kind of 15 minutes or something. And they were having terrible reactions and, you know, headaches and
Hmm.
not feeling very good. And I asked them, you know, what's your protocol? And they said, well, just slowly increase the time. And I said, well, you know, I humbly disagree, right? And I said, because you're not in there long enough to sweat. So what you're doing now is you're mobilizing these toxins every day, but you're dealing with the reuptake or the reabsorption of these
Oh.
toxins. And I said, so don't do it so often. Do it every 3 days, and maybe, you know, start off with 20 minutes, but get in there long enough that you're sweating, right? And
Good
so that's
point.
just something to keep in mind, because I don't agree. I just have, just because feedback from people going in at 5 minutes and then 6 minutes the next day or slowly working up, I don't think is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I also have to say that I would, probably until anyone has really gotten comfortable with the idea of saunas, especially with their children, which they can be wonderful. I've heard from many people, wonderful tools in your healing journey for your children. You should have a practitioner or
Yeah,
someone who is, helping support you, finding out, well, how did it go? What were your symptoms? Anything that came
yeah,
up as you, get used to it before
yeah,
you were to just jump in and be like, okay, I'm going to do this all by myself.
yeah. And
Um,
there is some brilliant practitioners that do incorporate
mhm,
sauna therapy, and that's a great advice to give. Yeah.
yeah. But even for myself, I had a naturopathic doctor in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and she recommended as part of my protocol, kind of for your healing, like you said, there was a number of things that you did to heal your fibromyalgia. I didn't have fibromyalgia, but I had symptoms and showed an overgrowth of candida. I don't know
Mhm.
if I always pronounce it that way, but I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, Candida, that's good.
That's right. Okay. Well, I had overgrowth of that. And so she had me doing a number of things. And one of them was I had to go and pay to go in the sauna because she wanted me to help open up my detox pathways.
Mhm.
And so as we were like binding and moving things, she wanted things to go out.
Yeah, no, that's
And
good advice. Yeah,
it helped.
yeah.
My skin changed and everything.
Oh, cool.
Um, So we talked to in speaking about, so I just shared, a little bit about why I like saunas for myself. A number of things, other things I have. So skin conditions, I've had some chronic skin
Yeah,
conditions, like kind of gross, but I don't know, like some dermatitis and maybe almost like fungal kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
But I would like Asana to help because I noticed when I was doing that protocol and using Asana, that just went away and I didn't have any skin issue. Um, and what are some other reasons that people might be using Asana? I know we can't
Maybe-
make claims, but what are
yeah.
some of the ones that seem to be popular? And you're not a practitioner, but you hear about the reasons that
Yeah,
people are
I hear
buying
of
them.
people, so without making any claims, I hear of people that use the sauna that have arthritis, use the sauna that have psoriasis, eczema, um, most, chronic pain issues. So I'm not saying that the sauna solves all the problems or anything else,
No.
but I'm just saying that's the history of people that often will use the sauna. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's this fine line, fine dance I'm doing here as far as to say, oh yes, this, whatever. So, but yeah, that I deal. Some people know specifically they're high in heavy metals because they've been tested, but other
Mm-hmm.
people will have symptoms, and a good practitioner, whether it's functional medicine doctor or naturopath, will say, hey, it's beneficial to lower your toxic load, just like we talked about earlier, right? And so it's yeah, so I doubt, it's some people specifically will have testing and say, oh, I want to lower my toxic load, I have heavy metals, or I have that. Those are easier to test for. It's not quite as easy testing for other toxins, because even for myself, you'd think maybe it's because of years watching Star Trek or something like this. You think, oh, they'll just analyze everything, but you have to. I had to pay to say, okay, I want chlorinated pesticides tested for. I want phthalates tested for. I had to give them
Specifics.
specific things. Now, to be fair, things have probably improved. That was 25 years ago or more, right? So I'm sure but I haven't. I've been pleased as far as seeing with people that have had some conditions, to that they have benefited.
Yeah, that they've helped people, and that's the paycheck, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of, I think the big thing is too, is sometimes people even like it, even if they don't have any health issues, they like it because they can unwind, relax.
Mm-hmm.
It's that what I was pleased to see, and this has nothing to do with infrared saunas, so I'll talk about this study, okay, because it's to do with conventional saunas. And they took, it was done in Finland, and they took 2,300 middle-aged men over 20-year periods. That's good database. And they wanted to see, and they're using conventional saunas. They're a lot
They
hotter.
love them there.
They love them there, right? It's part of their lifestyle.
Yes.
They were only using them. They averaged 14 minutes because it's hard to stay in there that long at that higher temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at things like heart disease, stroke, cancer, went through the list. So they looked at longevity, and the people that were using the sauna 2 or 3 times a week, or they were averaging 20 years later, they increased longevity by like 24%. The ones that were used in the sauna 4 times a week or more increased longevity by 40%. I thought,
Holy
wow, that
smokes.
should have been like front page news.
Yeah.
Like if someone told you there was a drug or a supplement you'd take that would increase longevity that much. And so, and they gave, and so to me, it was really, now this wasn't an infrared sauna, it was a conventional
Yeah.
sauna,
Yeah.
but it shows you that sauna use and sweating and raising the core temperature and all that stuff, I think is very beneficial.
Oh, yeah.
And it's and that the interesting thing with the study, I couldn't understand why they used as a control. This wasn't comparing to someone that wasn't using the sauna at all. This is comparing to someone that was only using it once a week. And I thought, why would they use that as a control? Wouldn't it be better to have someone that didn't use the sauna at all? But they said out of the 2,300 middle-aged men, they could only find 8 people that didn't use the sauna. Right?
Oh, in
That was so
Finland.
funny. So yeah, so that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're an excellent tool for supporting our health and wellness and
Yeah.
relaxing, like you said.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people find it, and I tend to do it. I'll exercise, and then I'll go in the sauna and do gentle stretching when I'm in there as well. It increases your range of motion, stuff like that.
I knew someone from Finland, but living in the States, who was an Ironman, and he put his bicycle in his sauna, and he would train
Oh yeah, yeah,
for
raising.
Kona in there, because
Yeah,
you got to train to work up to all that heat.
yeah. Well, no, I know of a lot of people that do things like that. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Um, Randy, is there anything else that you would like to share with the Brain Possible community to be complete?
Yeah, no, just as far as like I said, I wouldn't ever say that use a sauna is going to solve all your problems or all your kids'
Mm-hmm.
problems, right? But as far as a tool to use as adjunct therapy, I think it can be really beneficial. The sauna is what people sometimes don't realize. It comes as a kit, okay? And it would usually take 2 people about an hour and a half to put together. It's not like an IKEA piece of furniture where someone is going to be muttering my name under their breath. They're pretty easy to put together. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
against IKEA, but we've all put some of them together, and it's more difficult than you think. And the smaller units just plug into a normal 15 amp circuit, which would be your normal plug in your house or a normal
Mm-hmm.
outlet. And the larger ones need a 20 amp circuit. So it's something you can probably put, most places. One person is outside dimensions are 36 inches by 36. The 2-person is 40 by 48 inches. And so it gives you an idea, but you don't need any plumbing. You don't need anything fancy. So it's something that a lot of people, they don't realize. A conventional sauna is very different. You've got to hook it up with, a bunch of higher power. They draw more wattage. It's something that most people can do to add.
Yeah.
It is like a little wooden, kind of little building that you go in. But I've actually had a parent one time said, can you put a lock on the door? And I said, why is that? And they said, well, that's for my kids. And I laughed and I said, do you plan to lock them in, or you're locking them out? Right. But they said, no, I just want to keep them out because they were playing. They're playing at like a little treehouse.
Oh, yes.
And he's worried about being broken. But I always just thought it was funny. Someone says, give a lock for my door for my kids. And I didn't know what he was meaning.
Yeah. No, I did wonder about that, because I want to put mine. So my husband and I looked through all the different ones, and we think it would be better to just, if we're going to buy it, buy a bigger one.
Yeah.
But now we have to put a plug there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing we have to do.
Yeah, the bigger one does need a 20 amp circuit. So that means
so that's like your dryer or something, right?
No, it's well, it depends. Some of the stuff in your house is like 220, but this is still 110 volts, but you need heavier gauge wiring. So you'd need it could be like the dryer. I'm just trying to think of it. I'm trying to remember. I should know that, but it's not like a stove, for instance, where it's 220. So here you're just you need heavier gauge wiring going from your power box to where the plug outlet is for the larger units. And some people already have that 12 gauge wiring in there, but a lot of older houses don't. So then they put it not too far away from hopefully from their power box in the house, and they can run that wire. It's not that expensive. It has to go all the way across the house, then it gets a little bit pricey, So the 1-person, 2-person, and the smaller corner unit just plug into a normal 15 amp outlet. The other ones need that 20 amp, which need the larger 12 gauge wiring.
Okay. Well, so if our listeners want to learn more, where can they find you?
My website is radianthealthsaunas.com. It's definitely not a company called Radiant Saunas that are sold on Amazon, Walmart, Overstock.
You got to include the word health.
Yeah, it says Radiant Health Saunas.
Yeah.
And it's been a bit of a frustration for me because this other, I won't go into it too much, but there's a company that's kind of copying our saunas, and I wouldn't recommend them, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't usually say anything negative about specific other companies, but I personally wouldn't buy a Radiant sauna. So you have to make sure it's a Radiant Health sauna.
Mm-hmm.
So the website's, yeah, www.radianthealthsaunas.com. Our toll-free number is 1-888-291-6544. And I have a great staff, and I don't like high pressure sales. And so, all the staff really, what they do is they just, kind of educate the customers what to look for and stuff like that. You won't be getting hounded and on some sort of assembly line of getting all these calls to buy our saunas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that myself. And so we definitely don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were nice enough to give our community a discount code as well. So
Yeah.
that is listed on our website. Maybe actually it's
Yeah. So,
going, it will be live by the time this podcast goes
okay. All
live.
right. The discount code, so you'll get $500 off of the retail pricing.
Yeah. So
That's
be
good.
sure to use that. And we will link that in the show notes here.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, it was very nice of you to have me on, and I think you guys are doing a wonderful service and job out there.
Thank you. And thank you for diving into saunas with me.
All right, well, it's
And
great talking with you, and hopefully, I'm not expecting to sell too many saunas with the heat so high, but come the fall, the people start thinking about going in the saunas again.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but anyway, or if they're going through a detox program, they do it right through the summer. That's totally different, right?
Yeah, I just went to a house well over the weekend, a family member's house, and they know it has mold in it, and they were aware. And I'm all nervous. I was having an allergy attack, could see the
Oh,
mold,
okay.
my head hurt, and
Wow.
I was asking my health coach, "What can I do?" She told me several things, and she was like, "It would help if you had that sauna now too."
Actually, it's funny for your friends that have the mold, until they resolve the mold issue, they can get an inexpensive way. They can get a bag, zeolite bag, and it has a negative ion charge and it attracts the mold. They still have to find out the source of the mold, but in your bedroom, if they have these bags at the opposite end of the headboard, it attracts the mold, and then you can just put it out and sunburn the mold, kind of in the sunshine, it'll burn the mold off. And I
Oh.
found it was very effective for once you've stopped the source of the mold, and then you're just dealing with remnants in there.
Mm.
It's really good for, I was, because I am type A, had petri dishes and send it to my ecologist, and because I had a really good filter and it really wasn't doing a lot for the mold. And these inexpensive zeolite bags, I got them from Lee Valley Tools, and they call them volcanic deodorizers, but it was very effective in lowering the mold levels in the house.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I got that from I think it was from environmental company in New York, and I think I paid about $65 a bag. Okay, and they're
Mm-hmm.
reusable. They're in like a mesh bag with the little granulars. Like I've had it for, I don't know, 20 years. I just keep putting them out in the sun, and I told it to my buddy, and he says, "Oh, I saw those at Lee Valley Tools, for $15." And I said, "Oh no, you're mistaken. I paid $60. These are very different." And he said, "No, that's the same thing." So anyway, I went down to Lee Valley Tools, and they were the same thing. So
Is Lee Valley Tools a local store to you, or is it
I
a
don't know if it's
website?
just Canadian or not.
Okay.
So Lee
Well,
Valley Tools. Sorry, I just said that, but
no, that's
they
great
can deliver it.
information.
They call it volcanic deodorizer. It has a
Mm-hmm.
negative ion charge. If you're mold sensitive, don't sniff the bag after it's been there. You can get
Oh
somebody else
gosh.
to do it, but put it away from your headboard. Okay, like I just hide it at the back of a dresser, and
Mm-hmm.
because it has that negative ion charge, it attracts the mold there and away from when you're sleeping. Right?
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing
Yeah. You
that.
can take a small bag, put it in your fridge they have small bags, and you put them in the fridge where your lettuce is, and that keeps it from wilting and stuff. Anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Always
welcome.
learning something new.
All right. Well, great chatting with you.
You too, Randy. If you are interested in purchasing one of Randy's Radiant Health saunas, he offered our community a discount of $500. And if you were to call them, you just tell them that you would like to use the Brain Possibles discount code BRAIN500. BRAIN500. They do require that you purchase it through them. So even on their website, you don't just click and buy, you have to call them. I think they really are passionate about sharing and making sure that a product is right for someone and answering all of your questions. But you can still use the discount Brain 500 to get $500 off. I would love to hear if any of you do go through with that and how you're enjoying it, and how it's helping you on your journey. Or if you already have a sauna and it's been helping you, I would love to hear how it's been helping you. Um, Email us at info@thebrainpossible.com if you would like to share any of your experiences or stories with us. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation today and that you learned something new. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast if that feels true for you. You may also consider visiting our website for more information on stories, therapies, and products that we think you will love and will help support you on your healing journey. As always, thank you for spending your precious time with us at The Brain Possible. See you next week and be well.